think that Litecoin is awesome as well. I really think that it is one of the most honest altcoin launches ever to happen in history. And as you say, Charlie Lee, he's still he doesn't run the project per se, but he definitely still chaperones it a little bit and gives his advice and helps it along. So I really still think that Litecoin is an absolutely amazing coin.
Hello everyone, and welcome into crushthestreet.com. I'm Kenneth Amaduri, and we're going to have a discussion today about digital currencies again, and really touch on some of the latest news here. We are almost back to $1,300 Bitcoins after it crashed down below 1,000 just recently. It's coming back with resilience. And to talk to me about this is Vortex. He's on the World Crypto Network, and he does the Bitcoin News Show. He's a Bitcoin evangelist and speaker who's been in the space since 2012. And we're going to be talking about digital currencies today and getting some insight in what is going on in this ecosystem. So Vortex, thanks for coming on the line with me today.
Hey, thanks so much, man. Absolutely thrilled to be here.
Well, look, let's start off with what's going on just with the price and just sort of your own intuition as to why we are seeing Bitcoin continue to go up. So much controversy out there, and Bitcoin is almost $1,300 as we record this. Just what is some of the reasons for this?
Yeah, it's getting kind of crazy, right? I mean, Bitcoin has died so many times now, right? And people continuously to forget about it, and then it comes back, and the price, they see the price going up in the news, and they want to know, hey, what is this Bitcoin thing? Why does it keep coming back? And why is it so special? And I think that the answer to that really, of course, is that Bitcoin is something new, something that we've never had before in the history of humanity, in the history of our species on this planet. So really, this is the best money, the best form of money that we've ever had. And so I think that this Bitcoin, as it continues to evolve, continues to break new ground, and continues to be used for new things that we couldn't even imagine just a few years ago, the price is going to continue to skyrocket because it is going to be continued to be valuable. This is a very valuable new asset class that has kind of hit the world by storm, and people are just now starting to figure it out. So yeah, I don't see the price going down anytime soon. It does have a limited supply, and as more developers and more companies and more people come in to join Bitcoin, the price, the community, the ecosystem continues to grow. Now,
and I'll be a pundit here. Say Bitcoin hard forks, and I want to get your opinion on whether or not you think that's going to happen or not. We have two Bitcoins now, and theoretically we don't have a limited supply in this situation. And I think a lot of people like myself, who are, I'm all for Bitcoin going higher. I'm investing in it. But I'm scratching my head wondering, is Bitcoin as sound of money as maybe we were all led to believe?
Sure, yeah. So and the hard fork definitely kind of scared everybody, but it's much better to think of it as sort of like a protocol upgrade. But really, where we are in Bitcoin right now is Bitcoin is an open source software project. So the term fork, that's where it comes from. It comes from open source projects. Somebody can go and look at an open source project and then quote unquote fork it, which means basically copy it over, all the code, to their own project and use it in their own project. So when it comes to Bitcoin, it's a little bit different because the software project is money, right? So it's a little bit different when you want to fork Bitcoin. And essentially right now what we have is consensus to where we do not want to fork Bitcoin. We want to keep Bitcoin as one solid project. And so there has been things like soft forks initiated over the years that have allowed it to upgrade without actually having to split or anything like that. Now, there is a little bit of fear recently about having a hard fork in Bitcoin. The exchanges all came together and sort of signed a deal, sort of signed an agreement that would execute a certain plan in the case of a hard fork, so that they would be okay and that all of their users would be okay. However, as we move further along, in time here, we can see that hard forking Bitcoin is not going to happen. It simply will not happen because for a couple of reasons. The first one is there's really nothing to hard fork to. the competing project that claims to want to hard fork Bitcoin Unlimited, they actually just don't have a viable code base to fork to. And the vast majority of the economic majority seems to agree with this, because over 95% of the nodes are actually signaling for Bitcoin Core. So in my personal opinion, I really do not see Bitcoin forking anytime soon. And I see this anti-fragile system just continuously healing itself and continuously learning and from mistakes and any type of attack that comes, it heals itself. It learns how to do that again. So it's just absolutely becoming immune to anything you can throw at it. And the more stuff that you throw at it, the more immune it gets, right? So at this point, it's a pretty hardened security protocol. And there's just no chance really at this point for Bitcoin forking.
Okay. Well, I'd like for you to break down some of the latest news. Lots of politics out there. Lots of hurt feelings and egos being hurt, and it's circulating the Bitcoin ecosystem at the moment. So I'd like for you to get everyone up to speed on what this ASIC boost is, and what is the implication of it on Bitcoin, and is it an attempt to block segregated witness, and just kind of some of the details through your lens on this. I know you talk to a lot of experts out there. You yourself are an expert. Get us up to speed on this.
Sure. So before we go any further, I think I'd like to clarify myself as an enthusiast more than an expert.
Oh, I wouldn't lower your standard like that. No.
All the people on my show, I definitely like to call us enthusiasts and things like that. But definitely, we absolutely love Bitcoin and we love the space. And this is just captivating minds of millions all around the world. So it really is a lot like the internet in the early days. So to talk about ASIC Boost, there really is never a dull moment in Bitcoin. Bitcoin has all sorts of fun drama all the time, and it really comes with having this open source, this open decentralized platform where anybody can have a say. So it ends up being a little bit messy when it comes to governmental type of issues. But really, us in the community, we kind of wouldn't have it any other way. There is a few people on the Bitcoin Unlimited side, of course, that would rather have a president, a CEO, and a standard centralized organizational structure. But I'm much more for the more decentralized, open, ad hoc nature of Bitcoin Core and how they and their particular approach to software development. So to talk specifically about ASIC Boost, it's been a little bit of a buzz recently in the Bitcoin space, kind of throwing a few people for a loop. Basically, what we have is Greg Maxwell, a very talented engineer in the space, as most people are who are programmers in the Bitcoin space. It's pretty difficult to get into this space for programming because it requires disciplines from many different schools of thought, including economics, computer science, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. But what happened was that Greg Maxwell, a pretty interesting guy, he pretty much simultaneously reverse engineered a ASIC miner, and he came to the conclusion that there could be something along the lines of ASIC Boost happening out in the wild. And what ASIC Boost is it's simply a bit of a cheat, if you will, or a bit of a modification to a miner that will allow it to actually have 30% to use 30% less electricity. Which this means that they essentially get 30% more throughput in their mining. So that gives them an advantage over the entire Bitcoin network. And there's a lot of people that kind of threw their hands up in the air at this, and it was like, look, this is not a good idea for the Bitcoin community because this doesn't allow for an even playing field in the mining industry. Mm-hmm. And so then it got a little bit even more detailed because now people have come out and said that there's two ways of doing this ASIC Boost. There is a covert way where nobody can tell if you're doing it, and then there's an overt way where people can see. And so a lot of people have come out and spoken and say, look, ASIC Boost is not a bad thing, as long as it's not being done covertly so that the network can see who is using this ASIC Boost. And there's been all sorts of anomalies that have been discovered from people all over the world who constantly watch the Bitcoin network and the blocks being propagated, and all the details of the Bitcoin network are out there. So there's people all over the world watching this, and they have detected some pretty interesting things. And this is what led Gregory Maxwell to actually think, maybe I should reverse engineer this miner to see what's going on. And what was discovered was that ASIC Boost was in fact on the chips with the very precious silicon that they have, there's only so much room, and they decided that ASIC Boost was important enough to be put on their chips, but they went ahead, Bitmain is the miner that was reverse engineered, and Bitmain went ahead and put an official statement out there saying that they are not using ASIC Boost in any shape or form on the main network. Now, again, people have detected anomalies, and so nobody has 100% with authority and empirically said that they are using ASIC Boost, and so it's a little bit difficult to actually discern who is and who is not using it. But as you said, Segwit came along, and if Segwit was actually activated, this would actually prevent ASIC Boost from being used. And so this is at least for sure in the covert way, and that's the most important thing, because the Bitcoin mining has to be an open playing field where anybody can enter with enough capital, or else it's just going to turn into a centralized place where there's only one company mining Bitcoin, and you can almost essentially just call that China coin, and that's not exactly what the Bitcoin community wants. So we're looking at this right now, and people are still researching and doing things, but excuse me, as of this morning, Antpool, which is Bitmain's mining pool, is still mining empty blocks. And so this is still a bit of a concern with us in the Bitcoin community about ASIC Boost. And I do believe that it will be a short-lived concern, as is most of the concerns with Bitcoin. It's always pretty short-lived. Everybody likes, because there's so much money on the line, a lot of people like to write these doomsday scenario articles and things like that for just about everything you can think of. And as it is right now, ASIC Boost will be dealt with, whether it's through Segwit or a patch that will prevent it. But in the long term, it will be just a blip.
Okay, so is it an attempt to block segregated witness? And are the people that are trying to potentially use ASIC Boost, do they have a motive to go down the whole Bitcoin unlimited chain, in your opinion?
Certainly. Yes, certainly. So there's definitely been speculation about the reason why, Bitcoin Unlimited and Bitmain have been kind of stalling the debate and not letting Segwit activate is because they are running this ASIC Boost, and Segwit would completely kill that. So yes, there's definitely been a lot of speculation out there about how Bitmain must be, running ASIC Boost because they continue to stall the debate and not allow for Segwit activation. So in my personal opinion, I would have to say that the evidence to me is very much leaning towards them actually using ASIC Boost, because you have to ask yourself, if you have, if you're a competitive person in a business and you have an advantage that you see that you could make $100 million plus more dollars a year if you took advantage of this, but you know that it wouldn't be a good thing for the network as a whole, but you could get away with it, would you do it? And the answer, of course, for most people is yes. Right, so it's pretty hard to say that they're not doing it, but there is no 100% official evidence as of today that they are in fact using it. But like I said, with these empty blocks and with this motivation for blocking Segwit, it does appear that that is the most likely scenario.
All right, Vortex. Well, here let's switch gears here for a minute and kind of circle back around to how it relates to Bitcoin. Litecoin has a special place in my heart. It was the first altcoin that I bought a few years ago, and I actually spoke with Charlie Lee on my show right before we saw this big boost. Right before the vote on Bitcoin and Segwit and the Bitcoin ETF, and we saw Litecoin go through the roof here. It was at roughly $4, and now it's around $15 a coin here, and it was for the longest time just sitting there. A lot of the other currencies were spiking, going crazy, because there was all these problems in Bitcoin, and the spillage was benefiting Ethereum and some of these other digital currencies. And then finally, Litecoin started coming into the news in a very large degree. It looks like they're going to implement Segwit. The consensus is showing that. Let's just get your thoughts on what we're seeing in Litecoin and how important this is for Bitcoin's future.
Sure. So, I mean, yeah, as you said, the Litecoin run up recently was pretty fantastic. It went from about $4 to, I think it's currently sitting around $15. So that was absolutely a magnificent run up. Litecoin has been kind of sitting there on the sidelines for a while now, for a couple of years, while these other altcoins just seemingly keep going up for no reason. So was very wonderful to see Litecoin finally get a boost, because I do think that Litecoin is awesome as well. I really think that it is one of the most honest altcoin launches ever to happen in history. And as you say, Charlie Lee, he doesn't run the project per se, but he definitely still chaperones it a little bit and gives his advice and kind of helps it along. So I really still think that Litecoin is an absolutely amazing coin. And so with the Segwit stuff, it's really been interesting because it was theorized that Segwit could definitely be activated on Litecoin. And for the longest time, people were just thinking about it and theorizing it, and then all of a sudden somebody actually came up with an implementation, and so it started actually getting signaling, so we can actually now signal for Segwit. And even that was a little bit of drama, because the miners were playing a little bit of games over there, and some of them were signaling for it, and then they stopped signaling, and then they signaled again. But where we are now with the recent roundtable that Litecoin miners have had is that they all unanimously agreed that they need to activate Segwit. And there's a number of reasons for this, but in my personal opinion, why I think that why they moved up the meeting and to get the Segwit implemented as soon as possible is because of the threat of the user-activated soft fork. So the users basically were going to have this in here no matter what. So if the miners didn't play ball, they would of course execute a user-activated soft fork. So to thwart that, they moved up the meeting to as soon as possible, and all came to the conclusion that Segwit was important enough to where they needed to all signal to get that activated as soon as possible. And where we are sitting now is that we're over 70% activation threshold. So we're literally looking at within 12 hours of Segwit being activated on Litecoin, which is absolutely exciting for Litecoin, for everybody in the crypto space, because this is yet another step forward into actually scaling these cryptocurrencies, because a lot of them are in their infant stage right now. So as far as importance to the Bitcoin network, in my opinion, this is absolutely important for Bitcoin because Segwit, once activated on Litecoin, can prove that A, Segwit works, and B, that Segwit can scale, because soon after, they're going to implement the Lightning Network on Litecoin, which is another fantastic upgrade and another amazing research piece that we can see, this research case scenario that we can see that Lightning Network and Segwit working on Litecoin. So this is absolutely great, and the Segwit, of course, is part of the reason for the run up. But also, Litecoin has been here for a long time. Litecoin, it's got a number of years under its belt, and it really is still running strong, running great. There's a little bit too much centralization in the mining, in my opinion, but that can, of course, be going away very soon as Litecoin becomes more valuable and more miners step into the space.
Wow. So do you think then that we could continue to see Litecoin go higher, or once they implement Segwit, is that going to be a reason for people to sell? People that were speculating in Litecoin and causing the price to go up, would that be a reason for it to crash back down, or is this the beginning for the Litecoin's new run to all-time highs and higher?
So as I'm sure you're aware, we definitely have a lot of corrections in the crypto space, because people get really excited, and the speculators get really excited. They pump up these coins to crazy levels. I think Dash went over $100. Now it went back down to $60. So there will definitely be a correction in the Litecoin market, but this is absolutely a whole new era for Litecoin. Segwit and Lightning Network will be a whole new era for Litecoin, and the bottom will be something around where we are now, like $10 to $15. That'll be the bottom. That'll be the new bottom. And so as we go further along the time-space continuum, right, as time goes by and these altcoins evolve and the companies come into the space and think of new amazing ways to use these coins will be more valuable, and because they will be providing more value to the market. So I see Litecoin continuing to be the silver to Bitcoin's gold. I see Litecoin as a fantastic backup project for Bitcoin, were Bitcoin to ever suffer some catastrophic failure. I think a lot of people would actually move more into Litecoin even than Ethereum. But Ethereum is a whole different ball of wax. But Litecoin to me is really the closest thing to a Bitcoin backup that we have, the closest thing to a true Bitcoin testnet that we have. And I don't see Litecoin going away anytime soon. I see it being right next to Bitcoin for the foreseeable future.
All right, so I got to ask you about the Bitcoin price and where it's at. Are you comfortable buying at these levels, and do you think that it's going higher and higher from here?
Well, as they say, there's really only two good times to buy Bitcoin in history, right? The first time was in 2010, right? That was probably the best time to buy Bitcoin.
The guy who sold the two pizzas, right? He's
exactly.
sitting well.
10,000 coins for one, or 10,000 coins for one pizza. So that was probably the best time to buy Bitcoin. But the second best time is always right now. It's always right now the best time to buy Bitcoin, because Bitcoin, like I said, is this new digital asset class. This is the future of global finance, and it's definitely not going away. So remember, there's only so many places to put your money, right? You have gold, stocks, I guess real estate, of course, a few things like that, but there's just really, you could count them on your hands, the amount of places that liquidity can flow from the world financial system into. And so what we see is that Bitcoin is this new alternative, this new empty silo that is just completely empty, ready and waiting to be filled up. And so I personally see Bitcoin being here for many years to come and completely revolutionizing the finance system, similar to how the internet revolutionized media. And so what it did, of course, right, is it decentralized it. The internet decentralized media, made anybody available to be a show, and allowed for opportunities like YouTube to be created, and Skype and things like that, so that we can have the show that we're having right now. And Bitcoin will do something similar to where it will rip through the financial system and completely gut it. It will rip out all the excess fat and all the excess garbage, and really will kind of recreate it from the ground up, similar to what the internet did. And it will decentralize finance. It will allow everybody to become their own bank. And so I really don't see the Bitcoin price going down very much. Of course, it will correct, but it will continue to rise as we approach the 2020 halving, where the Bitcoin supply gets halved. The amount of Bitcoin that gets created every day will be halved, and that will force the price to at least double, similar to the last halving. And so I definitely see Bitcoin as an absolutely amazing investment into the financial future, because this is a revolution. I like to call it, a crypto renaissance, right? A new financial renaissance that we're currently experiencing all over the world, except this time it's completely global. Everybody from every country, from Venezuela to Australia to everywhere is getting in on this, and I really see this as the future.
All right, Vortex, I was going to ask you a question and I forgot it, and then it came back to me. I wanted to ask you about the fungibility between Bitcoin and some of the other altcoins. And do you see that developing, the exchange on a real-time basis? Because most of the other altcoins, they're 100% speculation. They're not being used in transactions the way Bitcoin is being used. But I'm wondering if there will be a time, or do you see it evolving, where there will be this instant conversion or the ability to transact in the real marketplace with all these digital currencies, or at least maybe some of the top ones that people seem to like?
Sure. So, as the saying goes, the future is already here, right? It's just not fully spread out. The future is always here. It's just not fully available to everybody in the marketplace. And I see Bitcoin as the future. And so the question, is, will Bitcoin eventually be available, to be entered and exited from everybody in the world? And, I have to say that it's going to get a lot easier. Bitcoin will continue to grow, and what that will do is provide incentive for companies to continue to make it easier to accept Bitcoin and to use Bitcoin for both regular things like a currency for purchasing things, right? But also as an application development platform. Bitcoin will allow developers to create amazing new applications that, again, we just could not conceive of only a few years ago. There's all sorts of, Trace Mayer likes to talk about the 7 network effects and likes to talk about the crazy things that you could do with Bitcoin in the future. And there's just the possibilities at this point are endless. As far as the fungibility, transacting between coins, that's definitely not going away. And there's going to always be a bunch of altcoins that are trying to be Bitcoin. So over the next few years, you'll see that we'll have a few of these top coins, right? Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin. We'll have these top coins. But there'll always be a tail end of 100 or 1,000 more, thousands and thousands more after that. So that's not going away anytime soon either. But with technology like the Lightning Network, this is where things get really interesting, because with the Lightning Network, you can do atomic transactions between Bitcoin and Litecoin, which means that you can transfer value from the Litecoin network to the Bitcoin network instantly, cryptographically, verifiably. So that means that it's no longer like you go to an exchange and you say, okay, well, I got some Bitcoin, I'll trade you for some Litecoin. And then, of course, on their centralized exchange, their database says, okay, we'll just swap these two real quick. And then if you want to exit, then, of course, you can see those transactions on either blockchain. But with the Lightning Network, you can simultaneously transact between Bitcoin and Litecoin back and forth. And it can be done instantaneously, cryptographically, so that you can actually see these transactions go from Bitcoin to Litecoin on the blockchain. And the Lightning Network is really what's going to open up this type of stuff where you can go instantly and easily from any coin to any coin without the need for a centralized service such as Shapeshift to do that for you, or an exchange.
Well, so much going on in the digital currency space, and really just revolutionizing. I love what you called it, the cryptographic renaissance. Is that what you said?
Yeah. You could call it I call it either a crypto renaissance or a new financial renaissance. New financial renaissance. Yes.
Yeah. No. I saw a picture of a guy riding a horse and buggy surrounded by a bunch of cars, and it made me think about, people who are refusing to acknowledge the trend in digital currencies and holding on to, either fiat paper, and to an extent, which I don't disagree with these people, but only sticking with gold and silver, which again, I don't think you can lose there either. But I definitely think the trend is towards digital currencies, and who knows? I mean, who knows what sort of jobs and changes are going to happen? I mean, you might have a situation where you go obsolete if you're not with the trend. I mean, there's so much change happening. It's so hard to anticipate where things are going. And I think if people get behind the curve too much, they'll be left behind. The only thing I think people have going for them is the fact that the governments, I don't believe, are going to want to they're going to want to let this happen. It's outside of their centralized control in their fiat money systems, their central banking system. And hey, maybe let's end the conversation there then. What are your thoughts on that? And what sort of resistance do you think the governments are going to impose? And is this going to either help Bitcoin and these digital currencies because people will repel in that direction? Or is it something that could actually destroy it?
Sure. So, I mean, this is happening. Remember, it's really interesting because this is happening all over the world, simultaneously with everybody. So all sorts of governments across the planet are having these conversations, and some with each other, to try to figure out, what can they do to position themselves to still be in power. And it's going to be a very interesting conversation. As we have it right now, we already have some examples of governments fighting back. For example, in India and Venezuela, the governments were doing things like placing ads about warning about Bitcoin. Right? Don't invest in this crazy Bitcoin thing. The governments they're putting up television ads, and they're putting up billboard signs. But you see, that's about all they can really do, because they know that if they, for example, just made it illegal across the board, it would actually intensify the growth, because then people would know, okay, for sure, okay, this is something the government doesn't want. Yep, this is something we got to have. And it's kind of a red alert. And we see this with all sorts of different things. For example, what happened when you made alcohol illegal, right, in America? What happened, it went underground and just completely blew up. But it blew up underground, centralizing the power to these crime thugs and stuff like that, instead of being able to actually be somewhat regulated by the government. And so the government doesn't want anything like that to happen with Bitcoin. They do not want to push this underground. They do not want to lose the little bit of control that they seemingly have over it as of right now, at least in the conversation space. And so what we see is governments instead issuing warnings here and there and things like that. But we see that the laws are still pretty, ancient and old, right? We look at the IRS laws for Bitcoin in America, and you're supposed to report every transaction that you make, right, on your IRS forms, and that can be very difficult. And what we found recently is that there was a news article about how they found that out of thousands and thousands of people, only about 800 people actually reported their Bitcoin wins and losses on their taxes. So it's a really difficult thing to try to get people to give up voluntarily their money into the taxation system. And so it's going to be very difficult for governments to be able to get on board with this. But at the end of the day, if you look forward past 50 plus 100 years, if you really look forward out there, you can see that Bitcoin will bring individual sovereignty to the whole world. We won't even need borders. We won't even need governments. We won't even need these centralized bodies telling us what to do, because we can actually govern ourselves through technology. And that's what's important, is that's kind of where we're heading. We're heading to where the individual, through technology like the internet and Bitcoin, is becoming more and more powerful by the day. You look at your show, you have thousands of views on your videos, you're affecting thousands and thousands of minds, and you're just this one guy, right? and people love it, and that's what's great. And so more and more of this is what's going to happen. The internet will continue to really provide more and more sovereignty for us. And now that Bitcoin has made public key cryptography worldwide accessible, and it's just going to make it that much more powerful, because now we can hold on to our keys that will secure everything from our identity to our funds to our house to everything. And it really will make it difficult for governments to try to confiscate things from the people. So I don't see a whole lot of resistance to bring it back. I just don't see a whole lot of resistance coming. Simply because they know the consequence. Anything that they try to attack Bitcoin with, Bitcoin will learn and then just throw it right back at them. So
wow,
it's very difficult.
Wow, so they're just making friends, making alliances with their enemies, and essentially,
exactly.
and create, because
essentially that's what, very much so.
All right, Vortex. Well, hey, I appreciate your time and I appreciate your expertise coming on the show and educating us here at Crush the Street. If people want to learn more about what you do and the exciting things that you got and you're offering and your channel, where would they go? What would they find? And are you offering any services?
Sure. So I do the Bitcoin News Show. We've been doing that show now over a year on the World Crypto Network YouTube channel, and that's been a pretty good success. We continue to get more views, we continue to change more minds, and continue to educate people on Bitcoin. And so that's been really great, really fun. The World Crypto Network YouTube channel actually has a bunch of different shows that you and your viewers can check out. They're really great. Tone Vase and Mad Bitcoins. We got a bunch of people on there creating amazing content and pretty long form content too, from an hour to 2 hours. So lots of great shows on there. I really can't recommend enough. Everybody check out the World Crypto Network. And then I do most of my conversation about Bitcoin and the Bitcoin community on my Twitter account. So you can always find out the latest goings on with myself or the World Crypto Network at the One Vortex on Twitter. So that's not using the number one, but spelled out, the One Vortex. And I'm also available to chat on there. I'd love to talk about Bitcoin. Anybody can go ahead and message me anytime on there. And then in addition to that, I actually today, in fact, launched my I guess you could call them consultation services for Bitcoin. I kind of wanted to jump in the boat with Tone Vase and Adam Meister and a bunch of great content creators that have begun offering their consultation services for Bitcoin, because we really want to provide, in addition to this open and broad platform of education, we want to provide a one-on-one scenario for people to be able to engage in and learn about Bitcoin, because you can't just educate everybody at once. You also have to have and provide the ability to talk to somebody one-on-one, and that's really where we can make a connection and change minds. So I'd be very happy to help anybody who wants to talk about Bitcoin, about how they can help their business, how they can help them as an individual. Even developers can definitely message me and ask what's the best way to develop with Bitcoin and things like that. So you can email me there at bitcoinhelp@protonmail.com. cryptocrypto.com. And again, I have this email up on all of my shows on the World Crypto Network. I also have this email available on my Twitter profile, so that's always available for anybody to check out.
All right, sir. Well, hey, thanks for coming on the show. I appreciate your time.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it. I love the show.